is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today on Manage It. My name is Mike Guerin, and I will be the host and MC for the session this afternoon, and I am joined, as I often am on presentations like this, by the illustrious Russell Stainer. So that's our mug shots up there. I have to get another picture of me because I don't have a mustache anymore, and I haven't for a year and a half. Anyway, Russ, you want to take a second, introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike. Hello, that's me, as you can see. I'm head of sales at Click IT, but I've only been in the role a couple of years. Our previous head of sales retired, and I just sort of fell into the job. I'm actually a sort of hands-on JD Edwards consultant. I've been working with the Purgit product for over 10 years now, and with Click IT for 11 years as well. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, thanks, Russ. My name is Mike Guerin. I'm a senior advisor here at Team Gain Solutions. In 2 weeks' time will be 37 years since I first touched JD Edwards, so hence the 30 plus. Been doing archiving and purging for 17 years. Been with Team Gain for 18. Was with JD Edwards directly for 10 years before that, and been working happily with the Purgit product for 8 years now. So thanks, Russ. So a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody on the webinar is in lesson-only mode today. On the right-hand side of the screen, normal, is the GoToWebinar control panel for the attendees. There's a chat box there, not the same as a chat bot. Fire questions as you run across them as we're going through the session, and we will respond to them, stop several times and respond to them. Webinar should take right on about 60 minutes. We are also recording the session. So if you want a link to the recording, happy to share that with you. Or if there's others in your organization or friends in other organizations that you think might be interested, happy to share the link. And as we usually do when we have a survey or when we have a webinar like this, we've got a quick exit survey just to look for some opinion and some feedback from you all when you're finished up. Thanks, Russ. So we're going to cover off the three main components of the Manage It solution today, and that's the analytics side, then also the tested component, and finally the data mask. So, and Russ is going to be leading us through all of that. So Russ, turn it over to you.
I think first we've got a poll, Mike.
Oh, we do indeed, and thank you for reminding me. So just, so we're heading into the Manage It side, so I'm just going to launch a quick poll that's asking you about whether you have a way to be able to visualize your data now and be able to look at the growth by module as well. Just keep this open for a little bit longer, coming up at about half voted. Funny, when we're doing the ones like this, we almost always forget to throw in the I don't know. Because if I'm an accountant somewhere and I get a poll question, I would look at it and say, I have no idea what you're talking about, quite honestly. So some of the stuff tends to be geared towards techie, and we need to remember that. So, okay, give it another couple of seconds. If any of you have not voted or put your answer in, that would be great. If you could help us out. Okay, cool. So, the response is just over 2/3 was no, they don't, and the rest was pretty evenly split between I don't know, or like we say in French, je ne sais pas, and about the same for yes, we do. So cool. Thanks, everybody. All right, now it's back to you, Russ.
Yes. Thanks, Mike. So, we're going to have a quick look at the analytics side of Manage It. Manage It's a suite of data management tools for JD Edwards. There's currently 3 components in it at the moment: analytics, test it, and data mask. But it will grow in the future as well. So we're going to have a look at analytics first off. And if we think about our environment within JD Edwards, we have our development environment. It's got control tables and business data within it, and then that's replicated for maybe for some other environments as well. We all know the benefits of purging and archiving with Purge It to take the main bulk of the data out from the business data tables, put it into a separate archive location, and then as you're refreshing down to the other environments, you're only refreshing the smaller set of business data down to those environments. But how do we know when we need to purge an archive, or do we need to do anything else to the database as well? So if 2/3 of you guys don't have some kind of visualization of that data, then maybe manage it, the analytics side of manage it is for you. So we could probably get an idea of the overall size by asking the CNC or the DBA to find out the overall size of the database. Normally it's a bit of a database command to go off and find it. And maybe the individual sizes of the database data sources as well, because they're normally different database locations. But then what about individual table sizes? That's more of a specific query. Okay, we've got to try and find the individual table and get the information from that. But what about the record counts in it? Okay, well, we've got to run an SQL, select count star from table. Oh, hang on, we need that for 76 tables. Okay, well, that's a little bit of effort. And also, what about the distribution of the data in there? Is we know that general ledger is normally quite a big table, but what about media objects, sales ledger, item ledger, things like that? And how do they sit as a percentage of the whole? Do you know what the size is historically, or is it just now? If you ask the DBA and the CNC for sizes, normally it's a point in time. Okay, this is the size now. But unless you've kept any kind of records, you don't know what it was 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, 6 years ago. So maybe some historical trends. And what about forecasts for the future? If we know the trends historically, maybe we can forecast what it's going to be like for the future as well. Generally, if we don't have that kind of information, we don't have the knowledge of managing that kind of data or information, then maybe we're not actually monitoring the database as well as we could be doing. Do we get alerted if anything gets a bit big? Is that a database level tool? Is it something that can maybe be sent to applications people or managers as well? And as I said, if it's not monitored, maybe it's not managed. So do we need to purge an archive? Well, sometimes we don't know. And that's where the analytics side of Manage It comes in. So how do we get around that? Well, we've got two dashboards at the moment within the analytics side of Manage It. One's a technical dashboard and one is a functional dashboard. So looking at the technical dashboard, we can set up thresholds where we don't want database data sources or tables to exceed particular record counts or particular sizes, and they come through as alerts if they've been breached. There's also a summary area by either environment or by database data source. That summary drills down, and for that particular database data source or environment that's selected, we can see the historical growth and the future forecast of database sizes. And then over on the right-hand side, we've got a table-specific area, but also context-sensitive area as well, depending on what we've clicked in the other part of the screen. So we'll look at that in the product in a minute. But we've also got a functional dashboard as well, which then drills down from the environment. It makes it a little bit simpler. So if you're a BA and you don't need to know the database data sources, or you're a manager and you don't need to know the database data sources, then you can go environment, module, submodule, tables, and then information about the specific table as well. So it sort of flows in that kind of a sequence. Okay, so let's hop over and have a look at the software then. So we're going to sign into JD Edwards. Don't tell anyone my secret 3-letter password. With Purge It, we have a menu structure, but with Manage It, we've taken a bit of a different approach. We've just gone with an entry program, one entry program. It's just a program, so you can put it on as a task on any other menu that you guys have got, or you can just fast path to it like that. The concept on the front screen is a sort of red-green dashboard. So red is bad, green is good, and it's going to be modular. So as future modules come in to manage it, then there'll be extra sections around there as well. So if we take a look at this at the moment, Then we've got manage it on the side here, which is the analytics, and then test it. We'll get into later. If you click on the buttons or on the pie charts, as I said, red's bad, green's good. If you click on the pie charts, that would take you through to the relevant management dashboard. But if we go to the link, it takes us to setup screens for that particular module. So we've got some one-off configuration that we can do over on that side. We're not going to go into that today. What we will take a look at is the environment dashboard, or the technical dashboard, and also the functional dashboard as well. So if we click on environment dashboard, just wait for it to open. We've not got the fastest web server. Now, if I just zoom in here and we'll take a look, we've got alert information on the side. As I mentioned before, we've got the environment or database data source area at the top there, the historical growth at the bottom, and then over on the side here, we've got table specific information and also context sensitive tabs as well. So in terms of the alerts, we actually set that up in a different program, but we can see the settings that we've got here. We can set things up at a database data source level or at an individual table level. And as I said before, we can set things up either at size level, record level, record count level, or both. If we wanted to. And if one of those alerts has been breached, then we'd get a message over on, one of those thresholds has been breached, then we get an alert over on this side. So if we pick up FO101 there, for example, and click on that, it refocuses the tab on this side to show you the information about that particular alert. So we can see it was FO101 in business data test. The threshold was at 1,000 megabytes, but we're now at 1,600 megabytes. We can see that information there. And we've also got a dotted line on there to show you what the threshold was. So this might be useful if you can, if you've got a rogue process running that's gone off and created a whole load of records, or you're just monitoring something, monitoring a particular table which you know normally has a lot of records in, then you can keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't get too big. But as I say, you can do it by database data source as well. So if we, so that's the alerts side of things there. We can also check for tables versus specs as well. So if you've made a change to a table in dev, you've promoted it up to PY, there's 50 columns in the specs, but there's only 49 columns in PY table because it hasn't been regenerated, then we can pick that up as well. That comes through automatically as an alert as well. So at the top there, we can see at the moment we've got it selected by environment, but we can also choose by database data source as well. We can go backwards and forwards through time. We can go back to particular snapshots of time as well. All of that information there is used to build the historical graph. And in the database data source chart here at the moment, we can see that we've got some size alerts set up for different database data sources. So there's there's some colored dotted lines that match the particular database data source. So orange for business data test, blue for control tables test, and so on. And you'll be pleased to know you can change the colors. We know that colors are the most important thing in a dashboard, so you can change the colors to whatever you want to. We use hexadecimal codes. You can put whatever color you like in there. So if you want it bright pink, over to you. Now we can see things by database size, as we can see here, or by number of records. And if you look at the table information over on this side, where we've got the summary of the tables, at the moment it's sorted by size descending because I've got size ticked up here. But if I change it to number of records, then it would reposition and it would sort by number of records descending. And if you saw, this database data source changed as well, because the most records are actually in control tables test, not in business data test in this particular instance. So we can we know that when we're looking at by number of records, we're looking across all of the database data sources or environments that we've set up to monitor. So if I could just go back to database size there, so it refocuses to business data test, and we can see that information up here. Business data test is what we're looking at. And for the particular table that we've got selected there, F00165, the media object table, we can then see at the bottom, here's our historical growth, and here's our future forecast as well. So the dotted line allows you to see the differences there. On the other tabs, let's just have a quick look at those. So we've got an overall growth for the database data source, business data test, the alerted table information, we saw that already, and also the alert settings. And if we've got any of those table versus spec errors, they'd get shown on this particular tab here. So that's the technical dashboard. If we go back one slot, and we go to the functional dashboard, gives you the end information is effectively the same, but how you get there is slightly different. So we've got the environment at the top, again backwards and forwards through time, pick a particular date if we want to look at it by size or by number of records, and then we can focus in on particular areas that we're interested in. So let's say we're looking at financials, we can click that. That then refocuses down the bottom to show us all the sub-modules. We can say, okay, we're interested in GL, and then that changes all the information over on this side as well. And again, we're by size, so it's sorted by size there, but we've now got all of the general ledger tables. If we wanted to look back to AR, let's click on AR. We can see the AR tables, but we can click the segments in the pie chart as well. So if we just see, oh, that's the biggest one, we'll click the biggest one, then that takes us to GL there. And down the bottom, again, historical growth and future forecast as well for that particular table. So that's the two dashboards within Manage It at the moment. If you want any more dashboards, let us know. You know, we're going to grow Manage It based on our own ideas, but also customer ideas as well. So if there's any areas, not just in these three areas, any areas within JD Edwards that you find difficult to administer or monitor or use, then let us know, and we'll look at developing a Manage It module for it. Okay, so that's the analytics side of thing. Oh, no, I don't want Kaspersky. No, go away. So that's the analytics side of things. So next, we're going to go on to Test It. And a lot of people have been interested in Test It, particularly at Collaborate as well. And also the people who are buying Manage It, Test It is one of the main reasons why they're buying it. So over to Mike. We've got a poll question, I think.
Yeah, and actually we got a couple of questions that have come in as well, Russell. So we'll run through those first. First one is, for the files that are shown and monitored, will that work for customer tag files as well? So I guess that would be like the F55 through F59 series.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. The way that we gather the information is we do record counts off of the database based on the tables that exist within a database data source or an environment. So we drive off of the OMW. If you've got the F55 tag tables, etc., in the OMW, we can find that. And then the record counts we get direct from the database, and the actual sizes we construct based on the table structure, which we get the specs for from within JD Edwards. So it's all dynamic, and it can handle any table you've got set up in OMW.
Okay, so that could be foreign tables as well. So if they're not necessarily used in JD Edwards, but if they've been set up, then the tool could be used for managing them too. Interesting. Yeah, okay, I learned something today, Russell. Cool.
Yeah.
And for the growth and measuring it, the question is, presumably this is captured at points in time. So how is this captured, and how often? And I guess the corollary to that, if I was thinking about it, is if somebody is starting up with Manage It next Monday, then presumably the growth forecasting would start up from then, as opposed to being able to be loaded historically.
Yeah, so at the moment in version 1 of Manage It, we're doing it as you say. So we capture the statistics, they go into a table, and then we monitor, and then we report off of those going forward. So the historical trend builds up from when you first install the software. In version 2, I'm pushing to have a bit more depth in there, so that we can actually go back into time, and we can say, in this table, use this column to build up the growth of the data over time. So I'm hoping to get that in version 2. in terms of how it's actually captured, there's a batch job that runs, takes about 7 or 8 minutes. All it does is it runs through the database data sources that you've said that you want to monitor, does a standard JDB underscore get count API to get the record counts, and then we also construct the sizes of the tables in the first run, and then reuse them in subsequent runs. So 7 or 8 minutes, you can stick it on the scheduler, put it overnight. You can even run it during the day as well, because all it's doing is counts. So it's not like it has to be done offline as well.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I didn't realize that about the V2 stuff is coming up as well. Awesome. Okay, so let's, similar to the last poll question, but we're heading into talk about test it now. So about you, this is about your ability to create test setups. So we'll launch that. So pretty simply, how are you able to easily create or recreate a test environment right now? Really interested in seeing the responses on this one, Russell.
Yeah, me too. As I say, it was when we were talking to people at Collaborate, their eyes were sort of, you know, those cartoons where you see the cartoon characters and the eyes pop out on stalks. It was a bit like that. They were like, "You can do that? Wow, that's going to be a game changer for us." So that you know, that's one of the areas that a lot of people have been interested in, and why a lot of people are buying Manage It as well.
I'd believe it. Anybody that's been involved in projects, you get the classic thing of, I just went through it. It's not anywhere near as big, but fixed asset migration project, and we cycled through a couple of tests, and we had to recreate the test environment, obviously, between them. And it's a fair amount of work. And in our case, having something that would allow us to do it simply and easily, because we weren't looking to recreate the world, and there were some tables that we did not want touched, as is normally the case, or subsets, would have been awesome. So, okay, that's a little over a minute and a half. So about as I would have expected, Russell, which is 80% said no. So, not surprising.
No. And it's similar to the kind of feedback we had at Collaborate as well, in the sense that some people do a complete lift and shift of production, or sorry, most people do a complete lift and shift from production, whereas some have their own particular homegrown scripts that they've created to do the thing that they need to do. But again, there's still you know, a whole thing. Let's take the whole of prod down to other environments. Okay, so
Cool.
so we've got our environment sort of set up there again. There's our different environments, control tables and business data. And we know over time business data grows, we get more recent data in, and normally that's the kind of data that we want to be testing on. But when we go to do a refresh, a data refresh to the other environments, we're pushing some developments through, we get to PY and we go, oh, we haven't got any decent test data in there. So we go, right, okay, let's take out the whole of business data. We'll take TR offline. Oh, hang on, we've got to check to make sure that nobody's using it. Dave's still using it, so we can only do it in 3 weeks' time. Okay, so in 3 weeks' time, at a weekend, CNC's not, you know, needs to do some overtime. We drop the database data source at the database level. We've refreshed business data from prod down to TR completely, losing any other data that was in there already, and then we may then do that for other environments as well. And sometimes we do it for DV, but generally we don't, because the developers say, no, don't do that, because you're going to get rid of all of our test data. So normally DV tends to be years out of date from production, and when the developers are testing things, unit testing them in development, they're not going to have any of the current data from production in DV if we leave it like this. So what can we do about that? Well, test it's around here to help. Some of the problems that we'll see, as I just mentioned, whatever growth we've got in business data hit in production, we then replicate that across the other business data database data sources as well. If we're also replicating that DV, PY, and TR data down there, and we're backing that up as well, then it has an impact on the backup tapes. If you've got high availability nodes, it can be replicated across those as well. I've got a customer I'm talking with at the moment. They've got 3 JD Edwards instances, 4 terabytes each in production, but they've replicated across multiple nodes in Exadata, plus replicating across environments. So from 12 terabytes of data in production, they've ended up with somewhere between 150 and 200 terabytes of data for their whole JD Edwards instance. So you can see how quickly it grows. And the cost of that storage as well. They're on Exadata as well, so it could be even higher. Online DR replication, are you replicating all of that business data from all the different environments across to the test servers? We know that we have to do this data refresh as a CNC or a DBA. It's not something that BAs or managers can do. It takes time to perform, to refresh the whole thing, but also the delay, the infrequency of scheduling, because we have to make sure that everybody's not using that environment or are ready for a data refresh before we can refresh that. It destroys any previous test data that you've got in there. It sort of operates as a one-size-fits-all, but it it really doesn't fit everybody. Some of the benefits are that you do actually get the whole database refreshed. So you know that the data integrity is there. You get whole tables and the full data integrity. So some of those you can say that some of them are benefits and some of them are not. So how do we manage that with Tested? Within Tested, what you can do is you can apply subsets of data that you want to refresh at the individual table level, and also within the tables. So you can have data selection over tables. You could say FO911, I only want the current year's data. I don't want anything else refreshed down to the test environment. You do that with data selection, but we can also enforce data integrity by putting in referential joins, and we can say only take over the detail records where we just copied over the header record. We can also, when we're copying the data down to the test environments, we can tell it what we want it to do in the destination. Do we want to clear the destination out first before we then copy the data in? Do we want to replace it or append to it? And when we do replace it or append to it, we can also say, as I mentioned before, the detail to the header relationship. We can say, let's copy the header down, but then only copy the details where the header has just been copied down as well. So replaces clear the destination out first and then put the new data in. Add is appending to the data that's already in there, and again we can do joins on that. And clear is it's just the option where we can say maybe it's a transactional table that we don't want to copy any production data down into. We can just say clear it out and don't copy anything down. So we've got a fresh slate to start with. We've also got a no action as well. So we've consciously made the decision, yes, we've thought about that table, but we're not going to do anything with it. And we can put that in the definition as well. So we can specify these things at table level, but we can also group things together as table groups. So if we want purchase order header, detail, ledger, receipts, addresses, etc., we can group those tables together as a table group. And we can have a table, it can just be a one-for-one relationship, so one table in one table group, or we can have many tables in a table group. We can also have many table groups. So you can have a financials table group, a table group for Dave, table group for this help desk call, and so on. And tables can be reused across table groups as well. So there's effectively a many-to-many relationship there. Now, when once we've got table groups, we then create a definition, and the definition is saying where we're coming from, so production, and where we're going to, business data test, business data CRP, for example. And we've also got some choices on the table groups. Do we want to just process the table groups that we're defining within that definition? Or do we want to also say, yes, we want to do all other tables within that data source as well? So for things like the FO911, because it's a lot of data, maybe we just want the current year's transactions. But for things like company master, we want to take everything because we don't want any data integrity problems by only selecting some of the records from there. So we can say, If we're coming from control tables test or business data test, we can say, let's pick up all the other tables as well. And we can also apply some data selection over all those other tables as well. And we can choose what columns we want to apply it to and what tables we want to apply it to as well. So rather than defining every single table with specific data selection, we can apply something at the definition level and then say, yes, apply it down to these tables. So that's quite handy as well. As I mentioned before as well, this is the definition. This is the level at which we run. So a definition, you can have one definition for a table group. You can have multiple table groups in a definition. You can reuse the table groups across multiple definitions as well. So again, many-to-many relationship. And then when you run it, you get a unique number. You can just run a definition once. You can run it many times, and obviously you can run all the different definitions multiple times as well. So just to looking at this with some numbers and some data. So tables, here's my purchasing example. So we've got a header where we can say where TRDJ is greater than 1st of January 2019. So it's only going to take down this current calendar year in this instance, but it could be fiscal year as well. We don't have to specify a specific date. We can actually put some dynamic dates in as well. So if we want the last 30 days worth of transactions, or the last 90 days worth of transactions, or the current fiscal year of transactions, then we can put that information in there as well. So rather than putting a hard-coded date in there, we put a rule together and then put that rule in there as our data selection. And then for the details, we can just say, take the purchase order detail and look back to the 4301 to say, we've just taken the header down, only take the details where we've just taken the header down. And the same for any other detail tables as well. So tables, that could go into a table group, purchasing, sales, whatever module you want to. You could also have it by person. So Dave wants his tables refreshed every day. Sheila wants her tables refreshed every week or every month. You can also set table groups up per project as well. So you've got an upgrade project, a BI project. What about help desk calls? You've got help desk call, you go to test it in the test environment, you find you don't have the data there. So what are we going to do? Okay, we go to the CNC normally and we say, can you copy that data down for me using SQL? But you can actually do it now within test it in an application, run a UBE to refresh the data, and it's there within a few minutes. So definitions, you can set definitions up one-for-one for table groups, as I mentioned before. You can set it up by functional area, by project area. You can even do a whole environment as well. But rather than the whole environment being the whole of business data test being copied down to the test environment, this is where the data selection comes into play to say, rather than taking everything, let's just take the things that we need. So the current year's data, for example, or the current plus the previous year's data, rather than maybe all 7 years of data that's in prod, or 25 years of data if you like any of our project customers who've come to us. So definition runs. Every time you run a definition, you get a unique number as well. So let's go and have a look at the software. There's a lot in tested, so what we're going to do is we're just going to look at a couple of things in there to make sure that we've got time to look at the other things as well. Again, we've got some configuration things in here. We can register which data sources we want to be able to copy data to, so we don't inadvertently copy data into production. The central object mapping does the same kind of thing as well, protects production so that we don't copy to that. The execution, as you can see over here, we've got a batch version which runs the actual data copy, so you can call it from there. You can call it from batch versions or whatever. But the main things that you'd be using would be over here, tested definition setup and tested definition runs. Both of these are dashboards, so we've used the Power Form concept again to use our dashboards. With the Power Forms, you don't need any other JD Edwards licensing, no UX1 or OneView reporting or this, that, and the other. It's just core basic JD Edwards core technical functionality. It's a standard JD Edwards app, this. So if I just give you the big picture here, this is table groups. A table group is then defined with the specific tables there. So that's effectively a many-to-one relationship from table groups to the tables. We'll go into that in a minute. And then we've got our definitions here. And again, you can have many table groups to a definition if you want to. You can see here the definition says where we're coming from and where we're going to, but the actual core of what we're doing is within the table group. So let's find a table group here. If we pick up JD purchasing, for example, and press the definition screen there, and then zoom in so you guys can see what's going on. So here we ship some Z definitions as well. So you've got something to start with. You can play around with them, copy them, add your own as well. So do whatever you want to in there. We've got our tables listed here. Here's our first table that we want to process, the header. And we can see here we've got an action code. Okay, what are we going to do? It says copy and replace. So we're going to copy the data down. We're going to replace what's in there. You can see on the next one, it says join, replace. We're going to replace the data that's in there, but we're going to use it as a join to another table, that table being the first table that we're processing. So let's do this table by table. We only do the first two tables. So the first table says I'm the purchase order header. I want to copy the data down and replace what's in the destination, and I've got some data selection set up. So let's have a look at the data selection. In this case, it should be some pretty straightforward data selection here, where TRDJ is greater than a particular date. But we can also use dynamic dates as well. And if we've got one of those dynamic date rules set up, we put it in this this field here. So I haven't actually pressed that button before. There we go. Oh, look. So there we go. So we can have a rolling 30 days. So if we look at today, it's 23rd of April, 2019. So there, 30 days ago is 24th of March, 2019. And you can set these date offsets up however you want to. It's about 4 or 5 fields to get the rule in place, but it's really straightforward to set up. So you can use those dynamic dates there if you want to, and then that would be the first table copied. So just the current year's data there. The second table is the order address information. It's done alphabetically, I think, and we're saying we want to join replace. So we want to join back to a table, F4301, which is the one that we've just copied down there, and we want to join the tables together as well. So how do we link those two tables together? Let's have a look at join table criteria. It's on the primary key basically. So we're saying we've got the DCTO, the Docker, and the KCOO that we're taking from the table that we're copying down, and we're joining it to the same column names in the other table. But we can load that in there. If we don't know those column names, we can go to the indexes, find a relevant index, and load this grid up for us if we want to. And then we just repeat that for all of the other detail tables as well. So the price adjustments, held orders, etc., etc. That's our table group. If we look at something like sales, sales has got 2 headers. So if we look at that, then we use a different table action code here because we're copying 2 different headers down. When we're copying the detail down, we need to check to see if the header's in the main header, but also in the history header as well. And when we're processing the detail to copy it into our business data CRP F4211, we don't want to replace it on the second go. We want to replace it there. So scratch the table first, add some records in this row, and then the second row we want to append to what is already in there from this row. Yeah, so we've got a join add. There's a few different actions that we can apply in there. I think we covered them mostly. No action, clear, copy it down and add, copy it down and replace, and then add and replace for where we're joining to other tables as well. So we could build up some quite powerful refreshes there. So that's the table groups that we've defined over on that side there. Let's just have a look at the definition quickly here. So we create a definition, Within there, we can specify some table groups, and it gives us the total number of tables within those groups there. So we can see here there's 3 groups and 12 tables total within there. We've also got some, as I mentioned there, from and to location, but we've also got some definition data selection set up over here as well, and how many times have we run this particular definition. So if we pick up, let's pick up ZFin data there, for example. In here, we've got, sorry, that one, maintain definition data selection. We can put some over some, not carte blanche, generic data selection in here. So we can say if a table's got DGJ in it or DICJ in it, then or FY, then use this particular line of data selection. So where DGJ is greater than or equal to a dynamic date, DICJ is greater than or equal to another dynamic date, or fiscal year is greater than or equal to 17, for example. And then we can put that data selection together there, and then in that next button that I was going to show you, that's where we then say apply this data select. Oh, sorry, I've not selected the right row there. We can then let's just go back to that same one. So we're using the same concept. There we go. So we can then see for all the tables that we've got within the ZFin data definition, we can then see which tables have got those columns in, and we can decide which ones we want to use in our definition data selection. And we can just click them on and off if we want to. So we could say we want those in, or we don't want them in. We can turn them off. It's really simple and straightforward to do. It also tells you how many records are in the from and the to location as well. At the bottom, we've got some information about the last time it's been run, but we can also see our definition data selection there rather than pressing the button, and also a sort of explosion of the different contents in there. So we've got, let's pick up that ZFin data again. So in here, we've got a few different table groups, AP, AR, and GL. All the tables that are within there. Have we got some table level data selection? Are we joining to other tables? And also, have they been affected by the definition data selection as well? So that's quite a handy little screen there. Now these definitions that we've got at the top there, definition name, that's the level that we run things at as well. So if we went back to the to this screen, when we run the tested data copy run, we specify the definition name. That's all we need to do. We can run it in proof and final mode as well. And when we do run it, we get the results in our definition runs dashboard. Again, it's a power form, gives us lots of information available on the same screen. We'll just have a quick look in here, just conscious of time now. So in here, let's zoom out, big picture. So just to show you on the side here, we've got the definition level data selection and also the individual table level data selection shown on the side there, and also a current status of the particular table that we've got highlighted in the detail. Let's zoom back in again so we can see a bit more detail. All of the definition runs have hyperlinks on them, so we can open the PDF up straight away, so we don't have to go to work with submitted jobs to find it. We've got our from and to location. We can apply a data mask to it as well, and I'll show you that in the next section, so the third section. And we can see, have we applied some definition level data selection? Is it running proof or update? Are we just running for the table groups, or are we running for table groups plus all the other tables within the database data source? And if we are running for all the other tables, what's our default table action? We want to copy from production, and or in this case, copy from test down to test it, and we want to copy and replace it. What kind of report do we want? Do we want just the errors, or do we want a full report? Current status. Do we want to create the tables if they don't exist? So let's say we're creating a training environment that doesn't normally get tables created in it, or we're creating it new from into a new database data source. Then we can automatically create the tables as we go as well. So create the table, then copy the data back down into it, so you don't have to do that separate step as a CNC task. And then a little bit of audit data there as well. Now, for each of the runs that we've got down here, so this is where we're using test it for a company divestation, where somebody sold a company and then they want to take that data out. In this case, we're processing 4,500 tables within this definition, but it could be a lot less than that, depending on what you want to do. But in the detail, gives us the information about the specific tables that we want to perform. If we've got any joins set up, that would also show in there as well. So if I look at, let's find another one. That one, for example. So this is sales. So we've got some sales details. We've got some joins back to the header. We can see the sales, to see the join that we're using as well. It tells us what the status is, how many records were successful, how many failed, and again some audit information there as well. We can tick that off, so it makes it simpler for us as well if we want that. Definition run log, start and end times, and also information about the data mask as well. So if I pick that one up there, data mask, we can see we've got some information in there as well. So that's test it really. There's a couple of dashboards in there, a little bit of setup information, but it's really flexible. You can set things up within the screens. You can run the job as a batch version, and you can effectively refresh whatever data you want to whenever you want to. You don't have to wait 3 weeks to do a refresh. You don't have to do it offline. You can do it during the day when people are on the system as well. So, any questions from that bit, Mike?
Just one so far. That is, a common situation is with UDCs, so user-defined codes. Can you be selective in what you're copying down? So, and it's probably obvious for anyone that's worked in JD Edwards, but a pretty common scenario is if you're doing some setup for, you're doing a mod, you're doing some new whatevers. It's quite likely that you're going to be setting up some new UDCs for status code, 41L for inventory, and you don't want that stuff clobbered. So is that, I guess, where the data selection would come in to let you be selective about copying UDCs, but being careful?
Yeah, you could do that. You could either say don't include the table in the refresh. It's in the control table, so it's not one that would normally get copied. But you could do that and say I'm doing some control tables, but don't include that one. But you can also apply data selection, and the easiest way to apply the data selection might be based on the change date. So you can say don't copy anything down if it's been changed more recently than than the current, than the last 6 months or something like that.
Oh, okay, so the date could be based upon the target table as well.
Well, but based on the live table, I'm just thinking on the fly here. You could maybe do it based on the live table to say if I've got some new values in production that I don't want to go down.
Gotcha. Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So,
that's the only question. Off we go.
So last section then, it's really quick, is the data masking element. It's quick, but it's important. All of these new data privacy legislations that are coming out, like GDPR, POPI in South Africa, there's one in New York at the moment, they're sort of popping up all over the place. We know we've needed to do it for quite a while, but we've not necessarily had a particular solution in place to be able to mask personally identifiable information in test environments. In production, you use security, row and column security to lock the system down to make sure people don't see anything. But in the test environments, normally your access or other people's access tends to be wider open, and you can, if you don't scrub addresses and bank account numbers and salaries and things like that, then everybody's got access to them in the test environments. So that's what the data mask part of Manage It is about. Could be due to data privacy legislation that you want to comply with, could be that your company policy is more rigid than data privacy legislation as well. So maybe an HR payroll company, managed services company might have a lot more restrictive policies. And also one of the people who bought who's bought Manage It so far had bought it specifically for this element of Manage It, which is because they've got so many third-party contractors in the system at any one time. They want to make sure that they're completely safe in terms of their personally identifiable information. And as I say, it could be addresses, salaries, bank account numbers, whatever that you want to mask. And it's a really simple operation. You just say what table you want, what column you want, and what do we want to do with it. We want to clear the data out, we want to set it to a specific value, or we want to set it to a random value. And just to be clear, we're actually changing the data in the table in the non-prod environments. So it's not like security and production where we're just sort of hiding it using security. We're actually changing the data within the tables within those non-prod environments. With data mass, you can either run it standalone or you can attach it to the test it data refresh as well. So as the test it operation is occurring and it's copying the data down, you can actually say run the data mask at the same time as the test it data refresh. So copy the data down. Oh, there's a table in there. There's with a column that needs affecting, and the data mask will operate straight away as soon as that table has been copied down. You can also run it dynamically as well. So if you look into a test environment and you think, oh, that data shouldn't be there, you can say table column action, run it now. So let's have a quick look at that then. Very quickly, we're in the same screen here. There's the test it data mask run, but the definition is over on this side. So if we go into setup, I'll zoom in again when we get there. There we go. So we saw a definition with bankac on it before. Let's use demo just to show you that we can do multiple things at the same time. So if we do row group detail, so we've got a data mask group called demo. We can attach that to a tested data refresh, or we can run it on its own. And here we've said these particular tables with that particular column, I want to perform this action to it. As I said, there's 3 actions that you've got: clear it, set it to a specific value, or randomize it. And if you randomize an alpha, it will replace consonants with consonants and vowels with vowels. So it still looks like some kind of legible text. Random numbers if you're masking a number field, random dates if you're masking a date field. So that data mask group, as I said, we can run it. We can attach it to a test it data refresh, and it will do it as part of the test it data refresh. We can run it by using the batch version, so we can call the batch version here and specify the data mask in there, or we can use the dynamic data mask as well. So let's have a look in dynamic. It goes straight into the action screen. So here we could say, oh, we've seen some salaries in the employee master. We want to clear that value out. Where do we want to affect it? Business data test, row, run mask, and it will do it straight away. So that's really handy. So that's the data mask side of things. So let's a quick recap of the 3 areas of Manage It then. So for the analytics, gives you a better management of the system resources and advanced warnings of potential problems with the forecast element, and also indications of when you might want to purge an archive as well. So a little bit of a leader into the Purge It product. With Test It, it reduces the size, the cost, and the time for the data copies to the non-prod environments. It increases your frequency, increases your control, and also the quality of the test data down there as well. So if Dave wants his data down every day, he can have it down every day. And it can be configured and run by BAs because it's all within the screens. You know, it's the same pane of glass, simple JD Edwards functionality, and then you run a batch version to actually perform the data refresh. You know, it's not a problem for BAs, even project managers or IT managers to be able to run a data refresh as well. It no longer has to be a CNC or a DBA to do it. And then the data mask element provides your protection of personal data, reduces your risk of litigation if you do have some data breaches from non-prod environments, and also integrates with the test it element of Manage It as well. So in terms of pricing, I like this bit here that Mike put in. we thought it could be convoluted, but we decided against it. So, so we've said price is $4,000 per year per instance, and per instance, that's normally how many deployment servers you have. So dev py PD, that's one instance. So if that's all you've got, that's all you pay. And then as we got at the bottom there, on top of this would be installation and training. We've got a bit of an offer on at the moment. For a limited time, we're doing the install and technical config for free. And I think Mike worked it out. It's probably about $800 value there for free. If you're one of the customers who buys Manage It in the next few weeks. So, as I said, more to come. If there's any modules that you want within Manage It, let us know. We've got some on the radar that we're working on as well. But if there's any particular pain areas that you want us to include in the next release of Manage It, let us know. And obviously, you'll get that as part of your annual subscription to Manage It. So I think that's it from me, Mike. Any other questions that are coming at the moment?
Yeah, there were a couple of others, and this is one from Alex from way back that I asked him to hold, and that was largely around pricing. So, but just to confirm, if there's a dev PY and a prod, it's a deployment server base. So if there's a single deployment server supporting 3 instances of JD Edwards, cool, that's a single license. If on the other hand, it's an organization that, and a classic example of this, I think, would be if you're running multiple versions. So you don't have, you've got 7 or 8 different organizations or companies or business or companies most likely. Some are on 9.0, some are on 9.2. So you've got 2 deployment servers supporting that. That would be 2 instances that you would be licensing for.
Yeah, and some people have multiple instances of the same release as well. So some big global multinationals, everybody's on 9.2, but they've got 16 different instances of it for the different countries. So again, that would be 16.
The Eurasia instance, the Eastern Europe, the Western Europe, the North America, the South America.
Yep.
And then the Honolulu instance, just because they're special, kind of thing. Okay. And the data mask, Miguel had a question. The data mask is at the JDE level or the database level? I'm guessing it's at the JDE level. In the data, it's not masked if you do a SQL. Actually, what you're talking about with the test it or with the mask it is you are directly updating the data within the tables, correct? So it's not a matter of the vehicle that you're using to come in. This is affecting the base underlying data. So it doesn't matter how you come in SQL, other reports, data dumps, data browser, on screen, you're getting the data that it has become, not what it was.
Yeah, so the data mask element of Manage It is useful for the non-prod environments. It's actually, it runs at JD Edwards level, but it affects the actual database. So irrespective of how you access it, it will be exactly the same. Data mask in Manage It is good for that. If you're looking at encrypting data at rest in the database, then a solution like Encrypto from Emerald Cube would be the kind of thing that you would apply in prod to encrypt it at rest in the database, right. So then people can't see it there as well. So then you've got the 2 aspects. You've got data mask in Manage It to do the non-prod. You've got Encrypto to do prod, and then you've got your JD Edwards security over the top of that. So from an application level layer, then you're secured at that level in prod as well.
Okay, lots of choices, lots of options. Neat, thank you. That's all the questions so far. So, just to wrap up, thanks everybody for taking the time. Hope this has been helpful and informative for you. As we mentioned, when you exit out, there is a survey. Give us your feedback, please, and totally honest, totally straightforward. That's what we use to improve, much like Russell has mentioned a few times. If you're on for the product, and I've clearly seen this with the Purge It solution for archiving and purging, feedback from customers is what is used to improve the product. Feedback from attendees is what we use to improve our presentation. So fairly new stuff here, so that would be greatly appreciated. I will be reaching out to you to see what you think about this, see if you're interested in pursuing it a bit more, maybe having a more detailed presentation for you and your organization and answer your specific questions around components of this that are of main interest to you. We hope this has been helpful for you. Thanks for taking the time, and look for the email from me. And if you're interested in the link to the recording, let us know. Other than that, Russell, as usual, thank you. And everybody, thanks for your day, and we will catch you later. All righty.